Close all my extraneous windows. Don't need that. Let's see what happens. Pull this up. Okay. Let's look here instead. And if we jump in, we can see the various stages of all the artwork we've been putting together. It all starts with a sketch, and some sketches are better than others. But we can treat everything like a stepping stone to realize something amazing. All right. So that's the latest. Let's open it up. Get to work. My Zelda project folder is so big now, we kind of have to close the bridge. But here you can see me stepping through some various stages, just for sort of an educational moment. You can see me step through a few various stages of the sketch process to arrive at a composition that I actually have ended up liking. It doesn't always happen all at once. Different things get added in, new ideas spark. This was like one of the first sketches, which is just not very good. It's good, like individually things can be drawn well. However, the greater picture, the composition, is the most important thing. Okay. I shouldn't just chew on stream, but little snack, not the end of the world. So I'm going to flatten all these layers. Maybe I should upsize it first. You know. Here, let's quit out. We'll bring it into Photoshop. Photoshop will have the edge on the upresing tech. Okay, so this is minimal, this is default right now, vertical Instagram resolution, which is not my favored approach. I'm a cinematic guy, so having more widescreen formats is where I make my living. But we must try to make an impression in the online spaces now, in the public forum. And we're gonna have to set aside our cinematic aspirations for now. Twilight Farmer Boy, back to cause more trouble, eh? Don't make me warn you. Welcome back. Brave of you to show your face again around these parts. I did finally, but I actually, in all seriousness, should say that I appreciate the. It is courage. It is courage. It takes courage to speak folly in the face of the master. No, to be honest and be like, hey, I think this is not right. And maybe this isn't perfect either, but I feel like this gives a good representation of what I was going for. And then, you know, I squint at it. I like it. You know, it ticks all the other boxes. Yeah, so this is looking good. We can zoom in a little bit and see some things. And it's still just a rough sketch, you know. But this is what we'll work on this week to, you know. So some things I might sort of call out to myself that I wonder if I need to adjust is, these aren't necessarily bad things. I like a lot of what's going on here, but one thing I can say for certain is there's some lensing distortion that is, basically, I don't know if it's lensing distortion, but there's perspective distortion on her face. So we can see that, like, comparatively, this eye, much bigger than this eye. And this side of her face, much bigger than this side of her face. And it's like, oh, well, of course, there's always going to be whatever's closer to camera is going to be bigger. But the degree to which it is bigger is a matter of, like, the lensing and or the station point, the camera's place in the universe. So one thing that this is sort of giving the impression of is that she's sort of gigantic, and I like it. I like that she looks gigantic, and it's a good look on her, but it's not necessarily the same perspective as what we have on here Link. This is more of like, you know, this is a vertical, we're looking, you know, from a low angle looking up at Link, but we're not seeing like a ton of distortion with the lensing. Like, his hand isn't 10 times bigger than his face, for instance. You know, it seems reasonable amount of distortion. So it's interesting. So I like the effect, and it's but what's important is that I pay attention to the fact that I like the effect, and we want to preserve that. Because if what I do is sort of draw automatically, you know, I might correct things that I think, you know, need to. If something feels like it's not symmetrical, yeah, there's like, oh, faces should be symmetrical or whatever, so this eye's too big. But I have to remember to preserve what's looking good here because it looks good. But yeah, this could be killer, and it's getting well received on social media, which is the most important thing. Get those precious likes. All right. So I need to up-res this. That's super my focus, the likes. I'll make no... it's no secret that one of the reasons I'm finding a lot of dissatisfaction with my professional career is that the work and the outputs that I do, it used to feel like used to feel like I was saving the day. Like, I would go to a place and they would need an unreasonable amount of artwork by the end of the day. And nobody thought I could pull it off, and I'd do it and they'd be like, that's amazing. I never seen anybody do that before. You're like the greatest artist ever, you know? And that was something I was very much gratified by, because it's not like they hand over a check that day. The check comes like 3 weeks later. What I get in the moment is, you know, the likes and the like, oh, this is amazing, it's a feast for my eyes. Like, that is awesome to me. For me, I'm addicted to affirmations. What can I say? But I don't get it anymore in my career. Well, these days I send data and one person sees it, and, you know, that person whom I've never met before, and, you know, I don't get what I used to get out of my work. Nobody says boo. It's just data. Data received, you know, acknowledged, You know, check will be in the mail. It's like, come on, you know. I need more. You gotta stroke my ego a little bit. You don't have to, but the no, you can. You're being sarcastic, but it's absolutely true. I definitely need the need that part. It's not enough for me to I don't know. I guess you know, there's some stuff I do for myself, like the cats and whatnot, but this is, I mean, I guess I'm doing this for myself, but it's, an artist needs viewers, you know? Okay, we're up-resing this to double the resolution. I should really work even bigger, but I'm not sure if I have the processes to sort of quite do that. Oh, look how big this is now. This is twice the resolution. Right, good talk. Okay. This will be the new version we'll save out. I've been calling this one Night Walk. I know it was a topic of discussion. I eventually did join that Zelda creators group, and I just now sort of posted an introductory kind of like, hey, you know, here's me. Come check it out. Okay, now that this is large, it's been embiggened. I'm gonna flatten it. This will just be the basis in which I start adding detail. Your Discord, what is it again? I couldn't find it. Find you in ZC and Linktober though. Okay, cool. Good. Yeah, you can join it. Hold on. Let me put it up. Let me add the yeah, I'll post the thing. No worries. It's called Join Max. Don't distract me. You'll you can distract me, but also it's okay if you don't. I need you know, I'll be doing this one way or another. I'll go till I have 1 hour and 50 minutes left on this stream before I have to pick up one of my kids. And then I can probably do another quick stream, and then I have to pick up my other kid from school. You have 100 things you can send me. All right, cool. Well, there's a Share Your Art channel on my Discord that you can post anything there. Try to lay off the smut though. That's the request. Okay, I'm going to click this here. You should be able to just click into that, right? If you see the URL. So join if you wish, and nothing bad. I guarantee nothing bad will ever happen. Okay, so this is up-resed, and now we have to flatten it. Fill. But let's consider, for the sake of argument, because I know that, because you've said that you go back and you watch my VODs, the earlier VODs, and consider how much I got done in those earlier VODs when no one was watching except like maybe my brother, and I could knock out like 2 sketches in a stream or something like that. No, those weren't necessarily the best sketches, and I was drinking a lot of wine at the time, but they're, you know, I can move quickly if I'm not distracted by chat, and it's not a good or bad thing either way. It's just the speed at which something gets finished might be affected. But you know, if you're bringing up things that are relevant to discussion, and I ramble as I go through, and if it sparks an interesting question or comment from you, I want to hear it. You know, we're sharing and learning together. So. Okay, close out of that. Don't need Photoshop open. Now we're in Bridge. Here's the upres. Noted. Yep. Okay, so not every program is as ridiculous as Painter, but in Painter, it's extremely easy to accidentally draw on the base canvas. And unlike in Photoshop, you cannot delete the base canvas. So there's always this layer at the bottom of your layer stack that it's like, I can't think of a single reason to ever draw on it, and yet there's no reason, there's no ability not to. And a lot of processes in Painter will default to selecting the canvas to implement them. So the most important thing I can remember to do is to create a white base layer that I can put into a folder that basically locks it off, and that way I don't ever accidentally draw on the canvas anything important. I can accidentally draw on the canvas, but because I won't, it'll essentially be screened, and it'll ultimately catch me in the act, and I'll remind myself not to draw on it. So I'll never get very far drawing on the canvas, and it'll never be important. So I just add this layer called white. And one thing I'm interested in doing is, I don't know, is it, you could tell me, well, do you even have Photoshop or a program that'll open a PSD? Because if anybody was interested in actually seeing the PSDs, I wouldn't be necessarily opposed to sharing what those look like. You could get in there and like see the works up close or something like that. Avil, great to see you. Can't lock the layers in Photoshop. That's what I thought when you first said that. Yeah, you can't lock this off. I can, oh, I guess you can. You can lock it off, but you can you can still draw on it, which is, or maybe I'm the dumb one. Here, let's try. Here. You can see I've made some strokes here on the canvas, but they were accidental. They never got anywhere. Okay, if I lock this off, this is gonna, either I'm gonna be outed for being a bozo or what, but let's see here. Oh, cool. All you have to do is lock it off. Today I learned. Yeah. It's a learning, it's an educational stream. Boy. Alright. I did look at your streams, by the way, Twilight Farmer Boy. You're well on your way to drawing mastery. It's but I appreciated the shout outs and the you know, you're like inspired by Max Forward. I'm like, that might be much, but I do appreciate the shout outs and the appreciation. It was funny because I was watching your stream a little bit, and then I heard my own voice, and I was like, oh, this is when he was raiding into me. And I was like, who's that? What's that sexy voice there? This is going to be tricky because I am not warmed up, and now I'm going to try and perfectly draw. So we'll see me fail at that, but that'll be okay. Let me pull up a reference for Link. I'm not sure if I don't really need one, but like it's basically from, this is the Link from Twilight Princess. So, and I'm sort of depicting him in sort of a dressed down garb. He's not, there's no need for him to have his weapons on him, for instance. Did I see your latest stream? I'm not sure if I did. I looked at your stream yesterday. As in, yesterday was the day that I looked at your stream. So let's see here. And Twilight, I don't know if you know, but Avail is an extremely talented artist and I guess VTuber, right? That's the term. And they stream and they do amazing art. Zelda art. So, shout out. I don't know if anybody's listening, but I'll let me get better at this. Shout out. Fail. Does that make sense? Yeah, there we go. There you go. I already follow you, so I don't need to press that button, right? Yeah. The voice. Here we go. The brooding. I'm just, here we go. Sometimes toys are the best working models to use. This is good. Not sure what company. These are even great poses. I'll pull this up. That's a cool reference for the castle. We'll use that. I'm not sure if that's the official castle. It's a Minecraft version of a castle. Hyrule Castle. We did Zelda trivia too. It was more fun than I expected. That's interesting. Zelda trivia. So this is... I'll use this costume, but without the leathers. That seems logical. Okay. That right there. I was also curious, Twilight, about your... Some of the songs you were playing were not... Well, I recognized a lot of them, but not all of them. Some of them sounded pretty cool. Anyway, if you have a cool playlist you want to share, I can look into checking that out. Link always has this intense gaze. I'm gonna work a little bit loosely to start. It's not necessary It's not necessarily necessary for me to push down with all the pressure I can muster in order to make the line that I draw the finished line. That isn't necessarily the approach. It can be, I guess, but it doesn't need to be. Sometimes, and you all might notice this as well, there can be a trade-off between the pressure that you apply to your stylus or even your drawing instrument and then the accuracy that results from it. I think it's normal to want to push down hard so you can get a line that looks satisfactory in just the moment. But often, that requires sacrificing a lot of control and the looseness that artists often favor in their lines. When we work digital, as I am right now, there's another way where we can loosely and lightly apply lines and then darken them later by just sort of doubling them up, the layer of the line. Found some sketchy site with group trivia. Oh, that's a nice figurine. Sounds like the way to do it. The Princess Lo-Fi and Spotify. Okay. Twilight Princess Lo-Fi. Interesting. Okay. I have a few. Stole your idea, made it more Twilight. Already have part of my stream silenced because copyright because of it. Another chunk on your list. Yeah. I've had portions of my stuff muted. Nothing ever came of it. I think they just do that out of an abundance of precaution. And so, if you've listened or watched back my VODs and there's just sections that are blank, like there's no audio, even though I'm talking, that's the reason. This is a tricky angle. But I'm going to do my best. There's a lot of subtlety in the expression here on this one. And Link is so, the way I draw him is pretty much how he's always very intense and sort of severe. Doesn't emote much. At least the way I draw him. I'm not going to rush to put the pupil in the eye just yet. That can often be something that gets me in trouble. I'll draw a little bit more of the head, and then I'm gonna pay attention to this one. I want this one to really sort of look awesome. If I draw, see the previous one that I did where they were, previous one I did where they were holding the lantern and they're escaping and stuff, that one was done at the base resolution for Instagram, which is, you know, and it made it sort of easier to finish, but it wasn't that much easier to finish. And ultimately, I'm left with an image that has limited printout capabilities, or if I ever wanted to like make it a big image, it would have to be up-resed artificially, and that wouldn't be good. Better than that, I should try to draw it big in the first place and feel a little bit less rushed, maybe. Oh, there's some cool people. Avail, I'm not sure if you're still listening, but if you you may have been there when everyone was encouraging me to join the Zelda Creators Discord, which is cool. Anyway, I've gone and done that, so I made a little post this morning. Yeah, I've been reluctant to sort of overstate my case as like, what's that meme with Steve Buscemi, right? And he's yeah, it was Sextra. Sextra was there. I just wasn't sure if you were also there. Because does this happen to anybody else? Like, if you stream more than once in a day, like everything just runs together. Exactly. Hello, fellow kids. I feel that way sometimes a little bit. Probably. You're in that Discord too? Okay. I don't know. If they, I don't think... I'll never escape the cringe allegations, I'm sure, but the, Zelda is a multi-generational fandom, to say the least. You know what's exciting for me is I'm really looking forward to... I guess it's going to be... I guess there's a new Switch coming out, and whatever the case, whatever is the best way, but I've sort of got my wife on board, and we're going to get one so that we can get the kids to play maybe a couple of video games, not excessively or anything like that, but like Zelda is good. There's Akara. Welcome. But yeah, if I get a Switch, I can, you know, I can even play Zelda with my kids. That'd be cool. How big is too big with these ears? I feel like I'm drawing them bigger and bigger every time. in the beginning, I drew them like Spock sized, like Vulcan sized. Do you know what I mean? Like not as or something more akin to the you know, the elves in Lord of the Rings. But over time, I'm sort of turning over, seeing the common way appears to really get into it and make them big. And the more I try that out, I like it more than I thought I would. It helps that he's got these awesome sideburns that are sort of helps screen and minimize the absurdities. We did a trivia of, is it Zelda or Lord of the Rings? And it started doing quotes. Most of my chat couldn't tell which was which. Oh my gosh. That's funny. That's awesome. Any highlights? I mean, do you remember any? I'm curious. I was a huge, I mean, not like a huge Lord of the Rings fan or anything like that, but I saw them all come out in theaters. I was in the I was one of those people that was seeing them all on the day that they came out with big groups of friends. We were waiting in line for hours and stuff like that. We'd all get super baked in the car, and then the history of light and shadow will be written in blood. That is... it doesn't feel like it's Lord of the Rings. That feels like it's a Zelda. But you know, it's like gonna get my my Zelda card revoked. Yep. Okay. My brain is pretty good. I'll give myself a compliment, and then I'll miss the next one. We will greet the morning sun together. That also feels like Zelda. But I don't have a lot of confidence now that I've complimented myself on my intelligence and stuff like that. I'm really good at knowing stuff that like has no basis of Majora's Mask. I didn't even see that one. Those who do not know the danger by wielding power will before long be ruled by it. I mean, Twilight Princess says Farmer Boy. That could be cool. So I've I've talked before, I've played Twilight Princess, but only under the influence of marijuana, and then just nothing to brag about. But also, but compared to the Lord of the Rings, which I watched in the theater probably 3 times each, so probably 9 times in theaters, and then another 9 times on like DVDs, etc. So I've got a lot more experience with the original trilogy of Lord of the Rings. If there's any link to the past quotes, I'll probably understand those. Wait, can you continue your Lord of the Rings baked story? I mean, we were just potheads. This was at the time, just how it was in the... There was a time when in Los Angeles, weed wasn't legal. And, Therefore, smoking it meant you were cool because you were doing something bad, and meant you were grown up, you know, or that you know, people couldn't tell you what to do, and you know, all the edgy things. Here, let me do a quick save. Yeah, so we would, oh man, I used to have a huge bong. This is terrible stuff I shouldn't talk about, because it doesn't necessarily set a good example, but it's just as well to paint the lore of what I don't do now compared to what I used to do. But it is, it's nothing I'm ashamed of to say that, yeah, I had a giant 2-foot tall bong, and we would take big rips out of it and go and basically hotbox in the car before getting in line to go to the movie theater. And yeah, we prepped ourselves, got just right, waited probably an hour or two in the line to get in. So then it's sort of wearing off at that point. But it was still awesome. And we, yeah, the first Lord of the Rings was amazing to see, like, high. And I don't know how to say it, but watching movies when you're stoned is just awesome. And then the Two Towers, I remember we took mushrooms. Yeah. And that film is just incredible to me. And I saw it in the front row of the movie theater on like mushrooms. It was like I was there. I was in Middle Earth. It was nuts. So, you know, but don't do drugs, kids. You don't need that stuff. What's funny is that now drugs are legal, and it's interesting. It's not like they're legal, but they've essentially been so decriminalized that that the boomer generation is enjoying them openly and freely, and which includes like my parents. And the thing about that is anything they do is cringe. So I'm not excited about whether or not that, you know, I'm not thinking differently or being rebellious to be doing that anymore. It's just sort of like, at that point, like a destructive bad. It's not an outside perspective. Everybody's doing it. I have that kind of weird, it's like a juvenile mentality about stuff, but like if something, I remember when I was a teenager, you know, a lot of people like dabble in smoking cigarettes when they're young. And I was no exception. But then I got a job as a computer repairman, and I liked the job. I was learning about computers, and a lot of those skills I use even to this day. But I hated my boss so much. He was such an asshole. And he smoked the same brand of cigarettes I did. And that alone was enough for me to say, I don't want anything in common with this person whatsoever. And the fact that he smoked cigarettes, the same cigarettes that I preferred, it was like I had to repudiate that. And so I gave it up, and I couldn't see cigarettes as anything other than just sort of like a weird, disgusting habit after that. Sometimes if they're going around and, you know, I've been drinking or whatever and eating spicy food, I can be tempted, but I certainly haven't bought cigarettes in probably 30 years. We all have our vices. So this is tricky. Let's see here. Must be intense. I've always been very, how do you say, sober, I guess. Yeah, that's not for everybody. So one thing I'm running into here is the length of here, I think this is not, it's just a little too long. I think the hand could basically go like this. Or maybe not that limp, but as opposed to the wrist being here, I think the wrist should be here. Otherwise, it's going to feel like the forearm is too long. And let's see if that feels better. And I don't know what to say about, you know, what's the verdict, Max? Are drugs good or bad? I don't think they're... Looking back on my usage in the past, and, you know, on occasion, I mean, I won't say I'm always sober on this stream, because I'm not, but one of the reasons that I do stuff is because I'm bored, and I don't know how to deal with that. I get anxious when I'm bored, and yeah, that could be okay. But I want to draw it better. I get bored and my mind can feel too active. It's like a little too sharp. There's too much detail. There's too much clarity. And I don't want to necessarily feel the hard edge of every minute experience of my senses. I'm an inhibited person. We talked about this yesterday on stream too. The likelihood of me having like the guts to go up and ask my wife out on a date, like if I was sober, like that would never have happened, you know? Probably not, you know? Or at least it was a much easier thing to do after a few drinks. And it can be true that sometimes, even for this stream, I won't necessarily be in the mood, but I'll have like a glass of wine or two, and then I'm like, I am stoked, let's do this. I'll have like an awesome stream, you know? I guess I have social anxiety. I've attempted to look into this. One thing that I noticed, because my brother has a ADHD diagnosis that he was like, he's the most normal person in our family, so he like recognized that he needed help, and whereas like my parents would have been totally in denial about that stuff, and they just sort of let us suffer to spin out in our own minds as teenagers. From their perspective, from our parents' perspective, there was this stigma that if we we were neurodivergent, it meant like they were bad parents or something. Meanwhile, it's like super clear that both of my parents and everybody in my family is extremely neurodivergent. With the benefit of perspective now, our modern perspective, it all makes sense. I don't know if I love the way the hand is looking there. It's not a bad hand. Like, it's not a bad hand. I just don't think it's the right hand. Here, I won't necessarily throw it away, but let's move it aside and see if we can do better. What was it about the original hand that was working? If I just copy this and move it over. What'll that do? Quick save. I think I was angry when I was young about being forced to do things that I didn't want to do, like go to school. I wasn't necessarily like ready to be out on my own at a young age, but like that's factually true that I wasn't ready. But it also, the fact that people wouldn't let me do what I wanted to do, which is basically, I was like, get out of my way. I want to go and be a professional artist while I have some momentum with this stuff, you know. It's like, I'm young, I'm really good at this, like I'm highly motivated, and you guys are just throwing endless distractions my way. None of this stuff matters. Was my perspective on it. It was very frustrating to thus be forced to sit in boring classes and learn stuff that I didn't want to learn. And I'm not necessarily sure I was wrong about any of that, because definitely I don't use anything that they were trying to teach me. Nobody does. All that was just a big waste of gosh darn time. I'll always be mad about the fact that I was right about that. This is all on the right track. Better than this. The number one most watched TED Talk is about what you just said about school being in the way. Well, then, that vindicates me as a visionary genius. It's interesting. The school makes sense for different pathways. Of course it does, but not for everybody. And I don't believe that if you have... All right, maybe we could... let's suppose, for instance, that someone is exceptionally minded. Yeah, school is almost more for socializing. Okay, this is not political, but the school is a prison for children, and that's a fact, because if you don't go to school, they're going to throw you in jail for truancy. No, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but you can tell that actually I'm not far from ranting about the school system at any given moment. I don't really want to do that right now, but certainly school is important for socializing. I definitely agree with that. I definitely agree that school is important for socializing. But also a lot of what school is, especially in the United States, is just basically warehousing children so that the parents can work. For that matter, I am happy that schools exist that I can send my children to. However, I do not expect schools to do much other than keep them out of the parents' hair so that we can be productive and, teach them things if they are able to learn them. But schools do not make people smart. Intelligence is largely based on genetics. The most education can really do is nudge, like interventions, like school can do is nudge people, like maybe a few degrees this way or that on testing and stuff. But IQs are largely determined by the genetics. Just if your parents are smart or your family is smart, you're going to be smart. But also, intelligence has no correlation to productivity or happiness. In fact, a lot of this stuff is inverted. So it's a little bit... the incentives, the real incentives, as far as I see, that are pure as far as school, is just basically keeping the kids out of the parents' hair so that we can be productive and more or less establishing a baseline of general intelligence and feeling like you did something, But, yeah, if kids are, not being unsupervised in the house, then they're probably not committing crimes. And then the parents can go about their workday as they normally would. My female and male cousins went to a free school, and they're very creative now. Yeah, and making friends is good. Yeah, I think, I think, but like, there's a way to, I don't know. Do you really make friends? A lot of the people I was friends with in high school were just the people that sat near me in classes. It's just the people you're most exposed to. And then when you're not exposed to them anymore, you don't really keep in touch the way your homies in school, because it's more like your prison mates, really. You would have made art friends at the free school. I should have made more artistic friends, but historically for me, it's been actually difficult for me to make artistic friends. At least a lot of art school personality types, I should say, I find insufferable. Coming from a family of, literally coming from a family of professional artists where, you know, my mom was a storyboard artist at Disney and my dad was an artist too, but predominantly a writer. But, you know, they were basically workaholics. So, you know, I had that as a example of something that's like, you're an artist, you're expected to, produce and create art and things and have it be useful or, you know, be impressive, not, we were never quite like the liberal arts type of family. Like art for us was always like, this is a legit business that we do. It's our role in life, you know? That's what we do. It's not all about our feelings, you know? Some of this stuff that I'm doing right now is like, you know, it's personal stuff, so I can have allowances for it, but you know, or maybe I was the judgy one. I don't know. One of the reasons I like you and your streams is that your stories about your parents being artists legitimize being an artist more for me. There's people make livings as artists. I don't think the what was weird is they still couldn't help buy into the general narrative that being an artist is a bad career. It was the strangest thing to me that I'd watch them be successful and do great work in their fields and carve out a great living for themselves and our family, and yet they were aware of my talent level as a teenager, and yet they were still so insistent that I had to go to college, I had to get good grades, I had to do all these different things. So, like, when they didn't go to college as to become artists and do that as the successful route, you know, they were both college dropouts. It was just like they wouldn't acknowledge the evidence in front of their eyes. Eventually I realized that what they do, and almost all parents do, is they're just looking to sort of cover their own butts so that if something bad happens to the kid, they can say, well, I tried to steer them right, you know, instead of actually giving real advice. You know, I was served up basically, well, this is how everyone else does it. We don't want to be outliers when it comes to best parenting practices. So you have to go about the same way. You have to listen to the experts, you know. And that was back when they were like, everybody has to go to college. And for the record, because they were forcing me to, I opted to apply to go to Vancouver Film School, which had a 14-month program or something like that for animation. And I went to the school for 4 months. I learned literally nothing. I was the best artist in the class. I was the youngest artist in the class. The entire experience to me was cringe, and I hated it. And I dropped out after 4 months and came home, and, you know, I'm not even sure if I said I'm sorry to my parents. I tried, and I couldn't deal with it. I couldn't deal with how absolutely big of a waste of time it was. And yeah, it was frustrating for them. It was frustrating for me. because they essentially paid my way. In my defense, it was a fraction of the amount that they had set aside for my college fund, so to speak. And later on, when my brother and I both didn't go to college, they took our college money and spent it on paying off their house, and that was the best use of those funds. And there was no, and when we all get along great now. So knowing that they tried their best and we were right, and that we're all good people and nobody went to jail, and nobody died and nobody overdosed or did anything stupid. So we all get to live and laugh about it. But at the time, those things were tense. The parents wanted, they just want you to be the best you can be, but nobody knows how to make that happen. So, and the advice at the time was everybody had to go to college. You had to go to college. Well, I knew that was bullshit. And yes, I had to sort of humble myself because they didn't see art as the way for me, as a thing that I could do without going down these pipelines. It wasn't, they were not supportive about me just sort of winging it. But eventually I shook them loose, wore them down, and they just said, whatever, you're at that point I was like 21, and I was working and making my own decisions and saved enough money to move out. And they're like, well, we can't say boo anymore. And at that point, they all were relieved, and they pulled the stick out of their butts, and they were, nice and relatable people again, because they didn't have to, worry about me. It took a few more years for me to find an angle on my artistic career, but that was it had nothing. Like, both of my parents worked in creative industries, but I got where I got to with zero connections from my parents being the, my mom worked at Disney. My dad worked on various at animation studios. I didn't work at any of those places. They didn't get me jobs. I broke into the commercial and an entertainment realm with zero of the connections that my parents did, and they didn't really even teach me much either. A lot of what I know, pretty much everything, is self-taught because I'm a digital artist. Like, my mom didn't know how to draw digitally when I started my career, and in the end, I had to teach her how to draw digitally so that she could continue to be employed at Disney, which made a switch over to digital in the mid 2000s. By then, I was already drawing professionally, a small scale, but I made a decent living, just sort of being a general illustrator on small contracts and picking up storyboard work here and there. Art school is certainly something, but I'm glad I did it. I learned a lot of stuff. One thing I learned is, because I went to, do you guys know what CISA is? You probably wouldn't. It's the California State Summer School for the Arts. That was a cool project, and that was a cool program that is hosted at CalArts, which is a world-famous art and animation school, and one of the most expensive art schools like on the planet, pretty much. And it's not far from me. It's in Valencia, which is about a 45-minute drive from present location. I got into that when I was 16, so that's like a summer school, but it's like a college sort of summer school experience where you get taught by the college teachers and you live in the college dorms at CalArts. And you meet other people. Like, it wasn't just arts, it was like music and writing and photography and entertainment and stuff like that. So this was like kind of like a preview for me for art school. And what I learned is that I can't be trusted to be on my own at an art school, because all I did was goof off and basically flirt with girls and ignore my assignments until the last second, and then I did them, and they looked amazing because I had, an advanced understanding of drawing, even at that age, and that was a fun experience. But like, I'm the kind of guy that if there's fun to be had, I'm gonna do that instead of doing my assignments. Now as an adult, I know I can have fun and do my work, but at the time there was sort of like one or the other. It was a very social experience, and it was great for me. I'm glad I did it, but that would have been a difficult reality to. It's just knowing myself and how I would react to that temptation. It was wise of me, I think, to skip out on that. Whatever my outcome would have been, it might have been similar, where I was learning, kind of like when I went to Vancouver Film School, to study animation. Well, one of the things I learned was that I'm not passionate about animating because a lot of it is tedious. And they were also teaching very outdated animation techniques, whereas what was actually happening in the world at the time was people were learning Flash and, that kind of digital animation was new and actually a skill that was applicable, but they didn't have curriculums for that, so they were just teaching us the old way. That was the 4 months. No, the 4 months was at Vancouver Film School. The 2 months that I was at California State Summer School for the Arts was a very fun experience, but also more fun than educational, But like, I know the difference between when I'm learning something and when I'm having fun or wasting time, and I really just sort of intuitively understand animation and a lot of drawing concepts, and the coloring stuff, I gotta be honest, I'm learning all that now, and it's sort of on the fly. But at the time, I had like an adult level perspective, like an adult at a 16-year-old. As a 16-year-old, I had like the drawing skill of someone who was good and in their mid-20s. So I was pretty advanced, and just sort of objectively speaking. But I didn't. I knew two things. I knew that you didn't need to go to college to be a professional animator or be a professional artist, and I knew that going to college was especially art college, was no guarantee that you would actually learn how to draw or do anything artistic to a satisfaction. Going to an art college does not equate to having an art talent that is commensurate with the payments that you made to the art college. So it's entirely possible, and I've always seen this in my life, that people can go to art college and do great, and people can go to art college and come out and have no artistic skill whatsoever. And that's a tragedy and a scam. And I'm on the verge of another rant, so I'm going to stop myself. But that shouldn't happen. And I wanted no part of that system whatsoever. Here's a fun bit of trivia about my time at the California State Summer School for the Arts. Was my roommate was the creator of Adventure Time, that super popular, like the world's most popular cartoon in the like 2010s or something like that. I was 16 and he was 15, but he was like, he looked like a fully grown man, because he was like 6 foot something. He was like 6 foot something. He had you never watched it. Okay. I mean, you're the only person on the planet. I can't watch it because I'm driven mad with passionate jealousy. But Pendleton actually streams on Twitch, which is amazing too. So I can like every once in a while check in on him and, you know, see he's super quiet and reserved. It's funny. At the time, he was a little zany, and he was really passionate about animation, and he was a good friend. We fell out of touch a long time ago, but yeah, cool guy. Just a fun bit of Max lore is that I knew him back when. He was extremely passionate about making it in animation. So for him to have gone that route and succeeded is amazing to me. And unlike me, there's sort of like Tale of Two Cities or something like that. He did not have a like I had everything going for me with the like my parents who were working artists and theoretically had industry connections and stuff. And his situation was very different. It's not something I remember that clearly, and therefore, and certainly I shouldn't speak on it, but it's like with all the things that I had going for me, I couldn't take it seriously. And then he had all these headwinds, and he was just so determined. And so that's a good indication of, like, you know, for the most part, college is no guarantee, but it can work out. It's just, you got to be careful where you are, I don't know. There are, I don't know. Weird paths in life. Probably out of everybody in our animation class for that term, it's you could look at him or and him specifically, but then secondarily me as being a, you know, the successful standouts or alumni or something like that. So he did his assignments. Yes, he was extremely dedicated to his work. This is a you know, it's almost like a yeah, these like parallel paths or whatever, because he was so dedicated, and because I couldn't take it seriously, and maybe I wasn't the best roommate, because I would sort of like not be very helpful while he was trying to do his work. So I would like purposefully troll him by like, we got along great. We were friends, of course, but I would troll him a little bit by like blasting the Spice Girls album while he was trying to like get his work done and stuff. Oops. This, yes, you were correct. This is like the classic talent versus hard worker story. He, I want to be more generous to him, but I think it's like the accuracy of the story is also so important. He was also not one of the better artists in the class. That's my generous way of putting it. That's about as generous as I could put it. And my honest assessment when I saw his work was like, well, I love this guy, but I think he's got a lot of, you know, whereas I was like drawing like an advanced adult, he was not, is how I would put it. But also, interestingly enough, because I was remembering how he was drawing, and it was very distinct at the time, it was, there are like seeds of his style that were present in his work even then. And a lot of what I think is what makes a lot of what I think made Adventure Time so successful is sort of the sense, the aesthetic really helped people to feel relaxed, in the sense that like it made them feel what it was like to be young again. When you can capture that kind of feeling, that vibe, especially at that time in pop culture. That was the I don't know. I think that was the key, the lightning in the bottle. That's what people needed then, and that's what his show delivered. It was an amazing thing. Like feeling like you are a kid again, just imagining goofy shit on a playground. Yeah. So yeah, he had all the headwinds and succeeded nonetheless because of his perseverance. And I had, you know, all the wind pushing at my back, but mentally speaking, I had a lot of headwinds. And because, you know, my perspective on things was different. Also, I wanted to be a fine artist. I was really sort of passionate about, you know, passionate about being an artist like the ones that I studied, like the masters that I would study, and all that. And I had some existential crises that sort of set me down a few paths that were tricky because I was sort of touching on some realities where I was starting to realize about how much marketing and bullshit there is in art, like in fine arts. Fine arts is not necessarily the loftiest of places, really. It can purport itself to be, but there's actually a lot of bullshit in, you know, the fine arts. And especially when I was, what I was exposed to in art schools, in terms of like, oh yeah, look at this sculpture class, and you know, you go in there and they're just making abstract nonsense. And that wasn't what I want. If anything, I would have wanted to learn how to sculpt like Michelangelo's David and stuff like that. You know, show me those techniques. I'll figure that out. And those classes weren't, they're just sort of like weird blobs. If we've ever seen the, that could be anything you make, right? Yeah. And like, if you had a discussion with these people, I'd be like, okay, so, well, what is this? And it's an earnest question. They'll be like, well, it's whatever you want it to be. And I'm like, oh God, you know. So, but like, these are the people that were, you know, heads of class and stuff like that. So I'm just like, is there anybody in this entire campus who isn't full of bullshit, you know? Not to bash too hard, but are you going to make fun of me now? Am I drawing something badly? Here. Let me flop this. No, I meant what I said for the abstract sculptures. Yeah, it's like that. Okay, this is looking about right. I have over-indexed, I think, a little too far on the eyelashes, but the pose is pretty much right there. I don't know if we need these sort of cuppy, sort of trying to invent a little bit of detail right here, but I don't think that's needed. Or maybe he just needs sleeves. Like real sleeves. I think I'll just turn those into real sleeves. Do we all remember the movie Beetlejuice? It was like stuff like this. The Beetlejuice statues, you know? This stuff. I would go into these art schools. Now, I was going to art schools ever since I was like a teenager, just to do pickup classes, like after school classes for like life drawing skills and stuff. Because I had been taking art seriously since I was 14. 14, I was like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do this or die trying. And my mom at least was supportive enough to help me by taking me to life drawing classes. And these were classes that she was going to, so it wasn't any huge hardship for her to have me tag along. And she was chaperoning me and setting a good example about how to get along and be good. As oh, that's funny. You're Donald. Hi, Donald. That's funny. Oh, well, what am I saying? Anyway, I'm rambling a lot, but you do not possess my favorite name, but I will continue to call you what about Twilight? Is that a strange name, or is Twilight Farmer Boy the more preferred? Just as a abbreviated version of the full moniker. Sextra, how are you? I posted in the the Zelda creators. This is like a super lashy link. I don't mind eyelashes on our hero, but I have to save some for Midna. There we go. Call you what you like. Well, I try not to abbreviate too much, but Twilight Farmer Boy has just a few more syllables than I would prefer to rattle off in quick succession if I was, recounting a long story or whatever. Sometimes the debate gets fast and furious. Sextra, we were going over my my theories on art schools, worth it or not, kind of stuff. And I'm a little in the camp that art school, that probably most educational programs are a bit of a scam, and that art schools are certainly no exception. I haven't been to art school, but I have been to normal school, and I think any school has its benefits. I think it depends on personality. I'm not like, I like learning, but I'm not academically minded, and I really struggle with certain kinds of schools. Like I have a hard time if I've decided that something is a waste of time. It's hard for me then to stick with it. I think I paid way too much for my bachelor's for the information I was taught. Some of it was very good, but like 70% of it was like fluff. I had already learned most of the material on my own or through experience, same extra. It would be, I mean, you're making my case a little bit. There's got to be better ways to learn. This is maybe... All right, a question, Max. What's your idea of where your determination for art came for at age 14? That's an interesting...
Who above all else desire power.
Why did I? I don't know. I have a decent sense of like a sense of destiny. Girls liked your art. So there was a time when I was, so at 14 I was doing getting into like programming, computer programming and stuff. Yeah. But I got in. Yeah, there was sort of like a pick your path moment for me, where I was like, honestly, there was a kind of like this computer programming stuff is really awesome. But like, you know, I'd really kind of like to see what it's like to live a sex, drugs, and rock and roll kind of lifestyle. And I think an art career is a little more aligned with that path. I don't know. When I was young, I was sort of in a hurry to be a little bit rated R about things. But I did take it seriously. I would study from like my mom had all these really great art books with you know, like the drawings of Michelangelo or the drawings of Leonardo or whatever. And as well as like more practical reference books like Bern Hogarth, the abstracted body designs of Hogarth, and Bridgman anatomy. So here, plug a couple of constructive anatomy. These are old books that are so here we have Bridgman. These are anatomy books, and I would at 14 just draw from this reference cover to cover, you know, until it was easy. And then I'd move on to the next book. from Burn Hogarth. We may remember the way that this guy draws, and a lot of like the Marvel sort of drawing style is based on this stuff. So like, you know, if I sort of just dive right into anatomy and I don't pull up references on it, this is an important things. Do you have a Discord channel for these things? Maybe an idea? Yeah, I should. I've been thinking about stuff. I'm like, I should put up like a mission statement and goals of the stream and links in this stuff. Like, I could just post some of this stuff. I'll make a folder and I'll post it. But yeah, at 14, I was pretty fluent in at least doing studies of this type of work, and so then when it got into like going into figure drawing classes, I had like a body of sort of experience in like, you know, it was like I was used to drawing bodies abstractedly, so then I would go into these figure drawing classes and do really well as a teenager, and that, you know, these were, and I knew that was important, but also my mom was like, this stuff is important. The being able to, you know, figure draw is like what separates, you know, the men from the babies a little, you know. That was one of her terms, not mine. You know, blame her. Studying those probably influenced your style, or your style is the result of what influenced you. 100%. 100% agree. Right now, something I'm dealing with is something here is feeling inelegant, just like it's a little too pinched up. I have a tendency to draw too many wrinkles. Or like one line will do. I've got like dozens and dozens and dozens, and it isn't adding or solving anything. It's got to look like he's looking far away in the distance. I think that's basically right. These are interesting. It's like a philosophical question. Like, what does Link actually look like? It's like one of those things that everybody thinks they know, but it's kind of hard to actually answer concretely. You know, I don't think this looks bad at all, though. Okay, this is feeling good right now. Too many wrinkles on top of here. I think Ocarina of Time Link was influenced by an actor, but I forgot which one. Oh, that's cool. Wasn't it Leonardo DiCaprio? Oh, interesting. That I could see the I could see that maybe in like he kind of has that like middle hair part. I think more as Jonathan Taylor Thomas. Not perfectly, but he would have been the here we go. He was the heartthrob. And the voice of Simba, the speaking voice, yeah, the child influence at the time. But like compare like hairstyle and look of Leonardo DiCaprio at the time, they were like, you know, you could have mistaken one for the other. So that was just the look. Or like Devon Sawa, right? Young. Like this kid. He played Casper, right? It was all of that era, right? Boy, I had hair like that too when I was that age. I was better looking than this guy when I was, you know, I shouldn't say stuff like that, but I was quite the stunner when I was a teenager. It was the style. Yeah, girls were an influence on where my interests were directed, and it seemed like there were interesting girls to meet at some of these art classes, and probably had a lot to do with how I oriented my priorities at the time. And it's, you know, and I should circle back and like caveat, it's easy for me to say that like school is stupid when what I really wanted to do when I was in school was hang out with friends and, you know, goof off. And, you know, there's got to be, I have to concede, there's motivated reasoning when I'm saying stuff like, oh, school isn't worth it. It's like, well, school had the disadvantage of being in the way of the things that I wanted to be doing. So does that mean school is stupid? It's that alone, you know, I'm biased essentially. So did school get in the way of everything? You know, I don't know. Probably helped me along in ways that I'll never be able to know. And you know, I'm grateful for my parents for doing the best they could. I was not necessarily an easy kid to raise. In the 80s and 90s, we were very much sort of encouraged, not encouraged, but the try to imagine a world very different from our modern world where you know, your typical kid is watching, you know, Bart Simpson become like the coolest thing in the universe, and he was just, you know, a delinquent, a bad kid, right? Or imagine like how good the kids in South Park are, or being cool back in the day was about breaking the rules. And, you know, I hate to say it, but girls ate it up back then. They were, you know, if you were a class clown in class and being obnoxious and getting into trouble, like, you got all kinds of attention that you know, it was a good way to get attention if you wanted it, was being bad. love school because of just goofing with friends. Me too. It was just a place to see people and have fun. Yeah. You know, crack each other up and whatever. See how close you could push things before you got detention. Okay, this is looking good. Here, for the sake of demonstration, you know, we draw this with a feather touch, but if we just go in there now and add the lines on top of each other, it looks like it's not perfect, but it's the body doesn't need extra lineage, but in some of these areas where I didn't want to have too heavy of a hand, we can just go in and heavy it up after the fact, right? That looks good. I'll flip it one more time. Sextra says, I was a wuss, though. I once got in trouble. I was a good boy throughout the rest of the school year, though. So I was sort of pegged as a good kid early, and then what ended up happening was then when I sort of broke bad and had like my evil arc, not an evil arc, I never hurt anybody or did anything really bad, but I ditched class probably 3 or 4 times. What ended up happening was, you know, I was like, okay, I'll get in trouble, but I'll you know, whatever, man. Detention, I can do that standing on my head. Well, what ended up happening was the teacher and the school just sort of assumed like, oh, someone, because they would call me up and they'd be like, instead of like accusing me, they'd be like, Max, you were in math class, weren't you? I'd be like, yeah. They'll be like, well, your teacher marked you absent. Can you just talk to them and clear that up? I'd be like, I'll totally get right on it. And then I just never did. And then, but again, because I wasn't flagged as like a bad kid you had to follow up with, then there was no subsequent like follow-up. Meanwhile, like bad kids who were reputationally bad would constantly be in detention and all they did was arrive late or whatever, or you know, they weren't necessarily even ditching class. It's just interesting how, I don't know, if I learned anything in school, it's about how bureaucracies have weaknesses and how to exploit them, and it's like the real world doesn't work the way it should. This is definitely something for Max to work on, which is these silhouettes aren't going to necessarily benefit from having, do you see how I can't help myself but having like all of this like up, down, in, out, all that stuff. But that's not important information, really. If anything, I should just think of it like that, you know? Right? Make it decisive. Simplify it. Just draw a line that simplifies it. Erase the extra shit. I think I need to just ever so slightly nudge this over. This is like anatomy by feel. It's a lot easier to make these changes now than it will be later.
No parent should have to bury their child.
I've had a few comments like on social media like, why did you draw Link so jacked up? Like, why did you make his muscles so big? I think that's a fair comment because there's no like Conan-like representation of Link. That's that's not what I'm trying to do. This isn't like, I'm not trying to make him roided out or anything like that. Messing things up again. Yeah, a little bit of that felt better actually. Maybe it's because of the wind. I have to remember that too, actually. There's wind in this scene. Might make sense to have some of those details. I don't know. There's a lot of weird there's like rotational. It's so tricky right here in this armpit area. Maybe this needs to be just... I think that might be it. It feels like it honors the rough sketch. Now the rough sketch is like, it looks like everything's sorted out, but it isn't. Maybe this can be more set back. Ugh. And I have another idea. Let me quickly save. These sort of curves are maybe a little bit overstated. Yeah. Yeah, hour 50. Yeah, I will leave in, thank you for the time watch. I will leave in 5 minutes to get my kid from school. I do appreciate the reminder. We've all been there. You get on a project and you're like, I'm in the zone. I can't break away. I can't think about anything else. And then you're like, shit, like what's that smell? You left a burning, you know, I don't know, toaster strudel in the oven. Yep, this looks good. And now this arm, this forearm can actually come down a bit more. Shrink in size. Sausenbrudje. What is that? Is that Dutch? Mm-hmm. Impenetrable words. My second guess would have been like a Norwegian or something. My wife's family is Norwegian. Not to say I didn't totally pull that out of nowhere either. The Google Analytics tell me where the country that people are looking at my stuff in, and I'm very popular in Amsterdam and Sri Lanka, which is strange. It's not strange; it's cool, but it's I don't I used some educated reasoning there to arrive at that conclusion. And I'm agonizing over the line art here because once we do the color, we don't want to then have to make changes that we could have addressed in the line art stage. Much easier to address changes in poses and stuff at this stage, because after that we're committed, we're moving forward with this. There's no easy fixes after the line art is done. They call him Mega Man. Yeah. Mega Mind, yeah. It's interesting how this got so... Here, if you compare the two, I gotta get going, but like, you can see how, as I was drawing, like I kicked out the elbow a good couple inches. I'm not sure if I like that. I think it looks fine, but yeah, here's my alarm. Okay, so I'm gonna go. But, it might be a better silhouette overall. I think it's okay. I think he's still, you know, he's a hunk here. He's beefy. Yeah, I'll be okay with this if it stays or doesn't stay. I might make his head slightly bigger. You know what I mean? It might be smart too, but no biggie there. Okay, I'm gonna split. I'll probably just jump right back on stream because nothing else is going on today, and I want to be productive. So, everybody, thanks for popping in. Let me do a quickie thumbnail. Got my little arrow. I'll point at the arrow. Wait. All right, that's silly, and I love it. All right, see you in a bit. Maybe. Adios.